Welcome back to the second episode of Toke Pod. Tokies, we know that you guys are eager to hear this. The first episode went pretty well. We had some sound issues, but we think that we have figured that out, so we can deliver you guys an episode that at least sounds good. I know Will could barely listen to the first 5 seconds of it because it wasn't that crisp, clear audio that he expects. So hopefully Will can at least make it through to 10 minutes this time. Um, Draft party. I mean, couldn't say it didn't go off without you know a bunch of incidents, but I had to say it was a massive success. Um, a lot of notable moments. I think one of the most notable for me would be the food. As always, ladies, you guys delivered. Surprise of the day, Jesse coming solo, but bringing donuts and bringing other food. I did not expect him to come in hands full of food. I thought he might come in maybe a bag of plain Ruffles chips, something like that. But no, he came in with a full hand of food, a full grip, and those donuts the second day after really saved me in the morning. Any notable moments for either of you guys?
Yeah, like you alluded to it before when you said, nothing. It didn't. The party didn't happen without a hitch. But I'm gonna change that and say it definitely didn't happen without stitches. So I got into the bag pretty heavy with our last week's sponsor, Seltzer. They gave us a nice little goodie bag, and I had one too many. They're so delicious. And let me tell you, Patriot Punch does in fact pack a punch. It knocked me right off my feet, and I happened to hit my head, blood everywhere. But we had a little delay the next morning for me to go to the urgent care. But I was ready to draft. I did call Nick from the hospital bed, and the first question I had was, "What's my draft position, baby?" I was ready to go, regardless of the blood loss.
Yeah, I knew there was something when I pulled into the driveway, and ahead of me, Kirby's mid-sized sedan was looking like it was trying to back out. And as I blocked it, Anna comes out of the driver's seat of his mid-sized sedan, and I was wondering what the hell is going on. And look over to Kirby. He has what could only be described as a head wound from a medieval sword. Nick, do you have any more insight on this from maybe a mind that was there who was a little more sober, should we say?
It was quite the night. It's too bad that part of that seltzer goodie bag wasn't cleaning supplies and bandages, because the Maverick House is fresh out. So we're gonna have to make a trip to the store. But it was definitely quite a night. We've all heard the story. I don't think we need to get into too much details, but blood was shed.
Yeah, so that obviously set a little draft delay, but what party isn't good if it doesn't start on time? That's what I always say. You know,
Yeah, and then obviously second year in a row, we've had all 10 members of Toker's Lounge. We got 2 drafts off, and it wasn't too bogged down. I think we went pretty quick, so it wasn't too bogged down. And then obviously the incentive of getting quick drafts through was the weather. We were expecting rain a couple days out, expecting rain day of. It just never came, and allowed us to have a nice day out in the sun, playing some drinking games, which also led to a nice little fire out on the deck late night. And rumor has it, I didn't play much of the games, but rumor has it that although Matt Novak has hung up his baseball glove, his hands are still there. Guy was a wall back there catching the die.
yeah, I mean, I saw it firsthand. It was all Team Novak. Jesse was on the team, but we know he was more of a distraction. Even the throws, I played a couple games, and I would try to throw it for Jesse's cup, and it just seemed like the dice would bounce in front of him and just bounce right in Novak's hand. So he was definitely the secret weapon to the dice game. Um, and of course, as the party went on, well into the night, there were some late night noise. Amy, I'm sure, was upstairs, listening to all the conversations happening. But Kirby did find what he calls and can describe only as a savant late into the night. Kirby.
Yeah, we'll get into it later. I don't know how well Michael Titus's draft knowledge is, but he was the most impressive feats of musical pulls I've ever seen, where we could not stump the Schwab, aka the Titus, and he knew every magical or musical song that was played that night. I went on well hours in the morning trying to do the most obtuse pulls, but he knew every song right away. So if for any noise complaints, I'm gonna blame Titus on that one because he's just too smart and kept me up too late.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't be a bad gathering without a couple of people at least flirting with a little sunrise watch party. So I'm sure Pierce didn't appreciate it, but we do appreciate hearing about the Titus, um, savantness.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pierce slept right through it. I think the only guy that kind of lost his shit was your host, currently speaking. But we've kind of recovered from that. We'll move on from it. As the late nights come. A lot of sleepless nights. I was obviously lamenting over some of my draft picks, so tensions were high. But we've moved on from that. And speaking of moving on, let's just go right into the draft recap. Excellent two drafts, I have to say. Uh, you know, ladies, some of your picks, I must say, were just astounding. I did not think the draft was going to go as smoothly as it did. I figured there would be some ridiculous picks like, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson all going in the first round. But, we didn't even see our first quarterback go off until the beginning of the fifth round, which is very impressive. Miss Dixie taking Josh Allen in the fifth round, second overall. Um, I couldn't have been happier with how both of them went, but I have to say I was more impressed with the friends and family Sunbeas. I just did not expect it to go that well. Any words from you guys on the drafts?
Yeah, I mean, I think both drafts went really well. I think everyone, made some good picks, some smart picks, especially in the Sunbeers League. The ladies, I agree. Hats off to them. Very impressive draft from them with not as much experience as some of the other senior members. But overall, I was very pleased with how everything went. We can get into some specifics, but if Nick wants to shed any light, he can.
No, I think you guys nailed it on the head. I know we talked a little bit before this, and it's exactly everything you guys said. I will say I am suffering with a little bit of carpal tunnel in the wrist from clicking on all these draft players. My Valorant game last night was just a little off. I just wasn't hitting the heads as I usually do, but you know, we'll get better.
Yeah, I got to give you credit too. To be the guy that was solely putting people into the places, I know it definitely took a hinder on your ability to do any sort of in-game research during the draft. So the fact that you were able to put together the two teams you did while also listening to everybody bitch and, Titus try to take Hawkinson, then he doesn't want Hawkinson, then he wants Hawkinson, he almost leaves the draft, he comes back. You put up with a lot, so I'll give you credit for that. I know it wasn't easy.
Yeah, no,
Um,
thank you, and you know, always happy to do it. Just nice, just when you don't have to worry about Titus throwing a fist in your face, over a tight end from Iowa. But it is what it is. Drafts get heated, but it did go smoothly.
Any notable picks that you would call maybe one of the worst picks of the draft, or anybody that you thought might have went a little too early, or just how the heck did this person pick this guy? Now I know we're getting into the "Were you drunk?" segment, but any notable things that you want to just like maybe quickly go over before we get down there?
Yeah, I have it.
Nick.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I did have it for the "Were you drunk?" It was something we were thinking about talking about. It's just a debate topic for the preseason and pre-draft. But the glaring one for me was, and maybe more noticeable for myself because I drafted right after Tom. But he went Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, back-to-back picks. Third round and fourth round. I don't know if you know this, Tom. They're teammates. They only one of them can be thrown the ball. Uh, I don't know. It was questionable to me. I didn't mind it, having to draft after him, but it was questionable.
Yeah,
And well, just to add, sorry, didn't Tom last year also have Chubb and Kareem Hunt?
Hey, that might be his thing.
I think it might be his thing. He just goes to double down. It won him a championship last year. So who knows? Maybe he's onto something. Maybe we're the lackeys over here, not following his footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, he did also go double tight end later in the round, so maybe he just has a thing for like, doubling down, putting all his eggs into the same basket, I guess. The Keenan Allen, Mike Williams alone, I definitely think both of them are very good and they're going to have good years, but it's kind of one of those things where will they both be able to succeed each week, week after week, or are you kind of banking on one of them to be good while the other one's mediocre? It definitely, I think, lowers your ceiling. I think you'll have weeks where they both do go off, but I think it's a hard strategy to expect both of them to hit that high ceiling that you'd expect from, if you took them separately. Um,
And I think we're gonna get into the ceiling and that, but you want to just start off with the best draft? Who we think had the best draft? We have the two leagues, and we can just touch on it, briefly each league.
yeah, I'm gonna go with it. I mean, Kirby said it, touched on it in the last episode right at the end, and he didn't lie. I think one of the best drafts. Truman likes me more. Anna, uh, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Mike Evans, AJ Brown, uh, excellent picks right off the bat. Very high on all of those players. Herbert in the sixth round early on. It's just a very well-rounded team. Tight end Hawkinson, obviously starting off most projected points for week one. We know how that goes. It obviously kind of makes you coming out as the big guy, top dog on top. Um, will it finish like that? Statistically, the person who is the highest projected in the beginning of the year doesn't end that way, but I think coming out of the gates, as Kirby said, her kind of nonchalant, I don't give a fuck attitude, I think she does give a fuck, and it kind of seemed like she picked that way because her team looks good. Any of you guys, best one?
Uh, uh,
Yeah,
uh,
go ahead, Nick.
I'll jump right in just because I had on a list as well as in the friends and family. I had her. I had I had Anna on there with her draft. I agree with everything that you said. And then I also had Colby. I really liked her draft as well. I think a lot of it hinges on the Ezekiel and what he can be. And then the only knock I had against her was the Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb kind of teammate combo.
Yeah.
Obviously, in a perfect world, you kind of stay away from that. There's only one ball out there. But in that offense, I think they're both, with them being different positions, and you're always going to have run. You're always going to, I think it's going to be a pass heavy offense too. So you're always going to have, those things, but it just puts a lot of week to week on the success of the Cowboys. But I did like, I think Hunter Renfrow is a good late rounder. So someone's going to be in a high octane offense. Juju Schuster-Smith, obviously the Mahomes effect, and I think Josh Allen will be I think pretty significantly, as long as he stays healthy, far and away the best quarterback, fantasy wise.
I agree, and I also think you'll never be able to pronounce Juju Smith-Schuster's name correctly.
I like Juju Smith, Juju Smith, Jack Jingle, Juju Smith.
Kirby, who's your best draft from the Tokers or from Sunbeas?
Uh, well, I guess before I go into that, I'm still beating myself up for the Sun Bears League, where what you were touching upon with Colby's team. I did a similar thing where I have Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton. I don't know if I like that combo. I guess I'm just with a new quarterback. It could be awesome. They could have a high-powered offense, and both of them could get their touches. But I don't know how it's going to turn out, so I'm a little nervous. But regarding the best, oh gosh, it's kind of hard for me to answer because we're high on certain guys, high on a certain format for my draft, and not a lot of people went with that. But I don't want to say myself, of course, so I'm going to go with Nick in the Tokers Lounge. I feel like his draft is very similar strategy to mine. I think he has a lot of potential firepower on a week-to-week basis, all the way down the line. So I think that's probably my favorite of the two at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's got some serious receiver power over there. ETN, I have him in another league, so he's the only question mark I see on that team where everyone says he's going to be great coming out, but James Robinson's always looming on his back. Will he steal some time from him? Is it only one fumble away from just canceling it and going back to what they did last year? I don't know, but he does have a lot of high power receivers. I also think in our Sunbeas, I told Liv this, that if she can try to win the first, I think she had a little bit of a lackluster draft, but told her that if you could maybe win the first 3 of 6 games, I think when D Hop comes back, you're gonna have a pretty good team with Diggs, Chase, and D Hop. Those guys right there could be difference makers. Brees Hall, nobody really knows who that guy is. Is he going to be good? I don't know. So she's going to be holding on for dear life, trying to fight her way back up. But I think if she can hold off, her team could be decent with those three powerhouse. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is just always a monster. He just needs to come back from his 6 week suspension.
Yeah,
Um,
I do think
I was eyeing Liv's team. You see mine. I was the only guy first 3 picks to go running back, running back, running back. Obviously Liv's heavy in wide receiver. So I was peeking her team as a potential trade possibility with the old commish.
yeah,
I mean, not a bad idea. Looking at my favorite for Sun beers, I'm thinking I'm going to have to say I like Dennis's. I think I give it a full another once over. I mean, with Kamara as your running back leader, Fournette's a great. He's RB1, but it's a great RB2 position. Justin Jefferson, Patrick Mahomes, Kyle Pitts, Chris Godwin, Amon St. Brown, Kristen Kirk, like just that alone, and that's going to be, I think, a pretty consistent, pretty high-powered offense right there.
Yeah, and not to just try to, you give me a compliment, I have to go back and tug you off as well. But I do agree, the Tokers Lounge, you drafted how I wanted to draft. I wasn't able to draft the way I wanted to because of where I fell in the draft, being the second pick. It doesn't really bode well for Hero RB, in my opinion. But you drafted pretty much exactly all the guys I wanted. You got Pittman, you got Moore, you got Jefferson. I mean, I wish I was you, minus the cut on your head. I wish that was me. That was the team that every mock draft I did, it seemed like Pittman and Moore fell
Hey,
to me, and I
hey,
didn't get any of
chat,
them
clip
in
that.
any leagues.
Hey, chat, clip that. Dennis wants to be Kirby.
Yeah, I mean, and just to talk on that league, the Tokers Lounge, I thought there was probably no chance I could ever get the Pittman Moore combo.
Yeah,
The
it's tough.
fact that I did, the fact that Moore fell, I guess in my mind fell, but maybe not to me in the fourth. I mean, if we want to go into one of the worst drafts, I think I am not high on Jay Moore and Sween's team. I think Jay Moore's missing some running back
Can you
firepower.
we're just jumping through. I just want to. Can you just specify? Make sure J Moore and Sween both in Toker's Lounge.
In Toker's Lounge, yes. So that's
Okay.
the ones I'm looking at in Toker's Lounge. I don't. I mean, I know where he was trying to go. He went wide receiver heavy. I like Jamar Chase. I like AJ Brown. Deontay Johnson, I'm a little bit questionable of. So I think if I was him, I would have gone DJ Moore then, or at either T Higgins or Mike Williams. I think any of the wide receivers that went after Deontay Johnson, I would have rathered them over Deontay Johnson.
Deontay Johnson does fit into the Team Flash, apparel brand though.
For sure.
Yeah, but I don't think he has
You have
a
to
flash
think
running back.
I don't think it's really always about winning with that guy. I think it's more about the big play, the Flash, and trying to sell his apparel, the Team Flash apparel brand.
Yeah, we know he's not in this for the money. He's in it for the big names, and I'll give him this. It looks like he listened to the podcast. I mean, he got Allen Robinson, much to Titus's dismay. I saw that he wasn't very happy, and kudos to Titus for being someone who it seems like listened to the entire podcast. We appreciate that. I don't know how many of you guys did, but it seemed like he listened to the entire thing. So, shout out Titus. But yeah, Robinson was over Waddle, and it looks like Jay Moore. He listened to that and he picked him, but he's definitely going to be struggling in the running back department. Luckily, it's a 3 receiver league, and he has Chase and Kelsey and Brown. So I think he could be good, but it's going to be one of those things where he's going to need everything to line up for it to be a good season for him. Definitely don't like Deontay Johnson. Definitely agree
Yeah,
with Kirby. I would have taken Moore. I would have taken Higgins. I would have taken Mike Williams. I would have taken Cortland Sutton over Deontay Johnson.
yeah. I think the podcast, obviously, if you listen to the podcast, not high on Deontay Johnson. I think we all think Najee Harris will have a solid year, but outside of that, I don't think any of us are really high on any other Pittsburgh players, especially wide receivers.
Yeah.
I do agree with the Jay Moore his team, but I just think his draft fits for what he likes. So it's just it doesn't go kind of with kind of what we as a whole agree with. I think we're all pretty similar. And with that being said, I didn't like Tom's draft. It's one of those things where it's a weird question. I think his team's solid. I think he has a really good team. But I don't love his draft. Um, I know in friends and family I took Saquon Barkley early, but that's more of a personal relationship there than it is a fantasy move for myself. I think there's some better options there. I think Swift is massive. He's gonna have a better year, and I think Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs all better picks there. And he could have had them. And we already touched on it, but the Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, back to back. I think there's a lot of other really good availability. If he was high on Mike Williams, he could have went Debo or AJ Brown there. Or if he was high on Keenan Allen, he could have grabbed DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, both guys who I'm pretty high on. So that was what I had for Toker Sanj as far as worst draft, and not that he had a bad team. I was drafting next to him, so I felt like I benefited a lot of times where I was like, oh yes, thank you, thank you, I'm gonna get my guy. So it was more just a personal opinion than anything.
Yeah, I
Kirby,
mean,
any
just
last? Yep.
to add another pick I didn't like as well, which again, just because this goes against my core strategy, I'm not saying it will be a bad decision, but back in the Tokers Lounge, that same round as the Deontay Johnson debate, when it came down to Slim,
Cam
he went
Akers. Yeah.
Cam
I
Akers
thought the same thing.
over DJ Moore, over McLaurin, over Sutton, over Pitts, over you know a lot of other people that I'm not high on Cam Akers, so maybe he did it as some potential insurance for either him or Elliott will hit, and he'll just as a kind of insurance claim there. But I just don't like it. I don't think he's reliable, and I think if he had say DJ Moore in my head, which I've said many times, I'm very high on Najee, Diggs, Elliott, DJ Moore, then maybe J.K. Dobbins. I would be happier with that.
Yeah, I think it's tough in a three receiver league to take three running backs with your first four picks. I stray away from that as much. I don't even like taking two running backs with my first two picks. I felt like I had to with where I was just because I wanted Fournette. I don't know what did it. I mean, I have been two leagues, but I definitely do not like three running backs and four picks in a three receiver league because he's forced to start Brown, he's forced to start Smith Schuster, and then it's like, okay, if Juju Schuster Smith doesn't go off, you're gonna feel good starting Hunter Renfro, Tyler Lockett. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't like Cam Akers because it's kind of like the same reason I don't really. I try to stay away from Aaron Jones and Dylan. I don't like teams that just say they're using two running backs. You know, they have Henderson and they have Akers, and I just don't. I don't know. I just don't like it. I would rather just have a powerhouse guy that they say is a starter. I don't like guys that are going to be sharing the load, if you will, from a Lord of the Rings standpoint. Um,
Yeah, the only knock against that or disagreement of that, I think we've seen Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt both be very good options in the fantasy world as they work in a backfield together. I also think that the Green Bay Packers have been doing it for a bit. Not as probably clean and crisp as Chubb and Hunt, but I do think they've both been kind of guys who've kind of killed me, and you're like, wow, how's this backup just destroying me right now? But I do agree on the overall point.
And just to add one more on Cam Akers, in the Sunbeers League, Slim has Cam Akers as well, who he took in the 6th round. But in the Toker's Lounge, he took him in the 4th.
yeah.
So I think he could have gotten more value by holding off because he had same kind of mindset, two running backs, and then his third one was Cam Akers. I just think he could have waited a little longer.
Yeah, I don't know. He must have fell in love with them in the first draft and really didn't want to lose him in that one. I guess
But
we'll
we all
find out.
know how Slim is. He's more of a what's the right word for it? He's obviously a pessimist, but he kind of likes to inflict pain on himself with
Yes.
whether it be physically or just mental negativity on himself. It seems to be his comfort zone. I believe he had either Henderson or Cam Akers last year, and I think he may have vowed never to have a Rams running back again, and he now double drafted him. So I think he just has a glutton for punishment.
He's a BDSM aficionado. um, let's move on from that. We'll get into some of our segments here. But first, a word from our sponsor. We got a great sponsor coming up here. It's the Curb Dix Tile Cutter. Kirby, you have a little more knowledge on this. You want to take it away with the Curb Dix Tile Cutter?
Sure. Did you buy a fixer upper? Are you constantly running to Home Depot or calling your dad for his tools? If so, the Curb Dix Tile Cutter is the answer for you. It's the one-stop shop tool. Will solve all your renovation needs and give you the house of your dreams. So thank you for Dix, and hopefully, if you did use this tool, your house will sell quickly and fast.
What kind of problem does the Curb Dix Tile Cutter fix, Kirby? If you would go into it a little bit.
Well, there is a problem with home tile tools. You need multiple different tools to cut, the perfect shape that you may need for those pesky little pipes in your bathroom. This tool is just, well, maybe large and hard to transport, but once you have it with you, yeah, you will never need to go back to the store again because it has everything. It has a lubrication system with a built-in water basin. It is just fantastic.
Yeah, so go to www.don'tcallyourdad.com/curbdix. That's www.don'tcallyourdad/curbdix for the Curb Dix Tile Cutter. All right,
Present.
welcome back. Segment one. It's going to be a flash or fizzle. Basically, our version of a stardom or sit-em. We're just going to go through a couple of matchups that we have for this week. Maybe talk about who we like, who we don't like, who we're trying to stay away from. I'll go into QB first. A guy that I'm just trying to stay away from just for this week is Matty Stafford. There's a lot of talk of injury with him coming into the season. He says he's all right, but I would probably just fade him for this week. I'm not saying he's not going to get his, but if you picked him up late round, you were obviously somebody who chose to wait on a quarterback because the rounds he was going, you probably waited until the very end. But generally, I don't like to start a guy that is week one with an injury. I think that the quarterback availability at that area is pretty wide. So if I was a betting man, I would bet against him this week, and I would probably look for someone else off the waivers just to start for this week. See how he comes out. See how he does. Um, I think the Lions are going to be pretty good this year. Or sorry, not the Lions, the Rams. Jesus. Um, but I'd be fading him this week. Nick, Kirby, anyone that you're thinking about?
Yeah,
Well, if you
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Kirby.
No, you go ahead.
My fizzle is Tua. Not gonna pronounce his last name after all the shit I've been given for Juju. But resident Dolphins guy Tua Tagovailoa, however the say it. But
Tagovailoa.
I still not picture him as a rookie, but I do picture him as a young quarterback, someone who has not proven himself. I think that's Bill Belichick's. That's kind of where he eats. He feasts on quarterbacks like that. I think there's a lot of hype with the additions from their team, and I just don't love him against the Patriots defense and more specifically Bill Belichick. So I think he's gonna fizzle. I just don't think he's gonna, especially from a fantasy point of view. I think he won't be a viable option this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Trey Lance. I want to give him a week one buffer just to kind of see how he performs. There's a lot of hype coming into this year that he's, figured it all out. I think he went in one of the preseason games 6 for 6 with a touchdown, so everyone's high on him. But he is playing the Bears, so who knows what the status of the Bears are? Maybe this will be a good chance to prove himself to make the hype. But if I have him on my team or have multiple options, I think I would pass on him this week just to kind of get a feel because you never know what could happen week one jitters.
Um, I think if I had to choose a quarterback that, going back on what I said, that I might start over, um, Stafford, I think I would go with Matt Ryan. Honestly, I think he's going to have a good season. I think he's coming out playing Houston. He's a gunslinger. Him and Pittman, I really believe are going to have a connection. So I think Matt Ryan has a good week. I think he comes out early. I don't know how he'll do for the rest of the year, but I think week one you have a good chance of replacing him over Matt Stafford and him having some success against that Houston defense, who, you know, their secondary is not anything to be happy about. So I think he could really rip them apart. Nick?
Yeah, I like that pick too. I'm someone who's high on Matt Stafford or higher, or not Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan. I'm someone who's higher on Matt Ryan just overall in the season. I definitely think this is one of his juicier matchups. My my guy was Russell Wilson that stuck right out. I kind of try to, when doing this segment, not take the obvious guy, the Mahomes, the Josh Allens. And I think Russell Wilson almost kind of fits in that, but he's facing his own team. Seattle's defense is not what they are in our minds. They're a far away from the Legion of Boom. And I think he's going to, come out. It's like what Baker came out and said, like he's going to want to prove wrong to his old team. That being said, he's a little bit more of a top end quarterback. So my guy outside of that was Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to have a big year this year. Getting through all the coaching issues of last year, I think they brought in, some weapons for him. They got ETN back as another option. So, and they're also playing a Washington defense. It's a little banged up. They're without Chase, they're big pass rushers. So that's a big feel for a quarterback, is not having someone like that breathing down your neck. And I think the team's just kind of all over the place over there in Washington. So can't figure out their name. I doubt they're going to be able to figure out their defense.
Kirby?
Yeah, and just so it's known, Trevor Lawrence is undrafted in both leagues. Not picked up. He could be a hot waiver wire pickup if that is if what Nick says holds to be true.
Get him while he's free.
But yep, yeah, now is the time. But I know I have him, so maybe I'm kind of biased, but I'm big on Jalen Hurts this week. He's playing Detroit. They've always been notoriously the last couple of years have a bad defense. If you're going off projections by any means, and I'm only saying this because it fits my narrative, he has the highest projection for this week than he does all year. So I think it's kind of the same thing as Trey Lance, where it could be week one kind of jitters where you don't really know what he's going to look like again, but I think he's now poised to have a great opener and a great season.
Going on a running back that I would probably start this week.
If you don't mind me just jumping in, a little rebuttal on old Kirby here.
Oh, we love it.
Historically bad Detroit defense. They had 8 draft picks this year. I think 6 of them were used on defensive player, including one which a lot of analysts believe to be the best player in the draft, Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, edge rusher. And they took another edge guy out of Kentucky in the second round as well. And then their coach over there, he's a big time defensive guy, Dan Campbell. He's a tough, hard knock guy. They're coming off Hard Knocks, HBO show. I think their defense is going to be well improved. And you might want to think about starting Tom Brady.
But we do not know if Dan Campbell, in fact, himself ate the kneecaps of his defensive players. He's a big eating kneecaps guy. No one really knows what it means, but we all kind of get the vibe. But so I'm a little nervous. And I guess to your point, and which is detrimental to mine, I have not watched Hard Knocks yet, so I don't even know what the vibes are like at Detroit over there. Maybe it's high.
I'll tell you what Hard Knocks does for every season I've watched. It makes you really think the team in the Hard Knocks episode is going to win the Super Bowl when you're watching it. They usually never do. But Nick does have some good points there. Let's hope that it's not just Hollywood effects and lighting and CGI, and hopefully they are actually the team they're portrayed in the documentary. Moving on to a running back that I wanted to pick somebody that was outside of the obvious. I'm not going to tell you to start Christian McCaffrey. But this week, I think a guy that could have some success for any of you guys that have him, maybe on your bench or your flex, is Rashad Penny versus Denver. They picked up rookie Kenneth Walker. He has a hernia right now. He's ailing with it. So I think they're going to lean on Rashad Penny. to be that workhorse that they've tried to make him. Last year, he ended the season with like 4 or 5 games that were really productive. They lost Russell Wilson. They don't have a lot of options out there. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be good by any means, but we've seen teams that are not good lean on running backs, and when that happens, the workhorses usually produce. I mean, we've seen Saquon Barkley do it with that disgusting, disgusting Giants team that he's been on. So I think Rashad Penny, I think he could be a good pick this year. Not this year, for game one. Let me say this. I don't know how long he'll last. He's injury prone, but I think for the opener, he could have a very good year. Um, Guys, anyone you want to say for maybe a running back that you think will have a good week?
Yeah, I'm going Chase Edmonds. We all know, to Nick's point earlier, that Tua may struggle because the Patriots defense, Bill will always find a way, and Bill we trust, to scheme up against, a team to kind of to hurt them. They obviously got Tyreek. They have some offensive weapons. They may try to just rely on Chase for the passing game more so than just the running game. So he may have a good week. I think they're going to need to mix up the threats from the Tyreek downfield to runs and play action, kind of dink and dunks. So I'm high on Chase this week.
Yeah, I didn't get any Chase, and I was kind of disappointed with it. I think he's going to have a good year, so I agree with that. Even though it's against my Patriots, our Patriots, I think Chase Edmonds going to have a good game fantasy-wise, and I think a good year. Nick?
Yeah, just to jump in on the Chase Edmonds. I just don't like their backfield. I mean, I think their backfield will be fine, but I just think it's way too crowded. Chase Edmonds, I don't think has really truly established him as the go-to guy anywhere he's been. He's got Raheem Mostert behind him, who has had flashes of brilliance with the 49ers. And then they're still holding on to Myles Gaskin and Ahmed that from last year. So, and I don't think they were awful last year. I understand why they brought other guys in, but I think there's some concern there with shared time in the Dolphins backfield. But for me, I'm going along a similar kind of thought process as you, Dennis. I have Nick Chubb. I felt like he was kind of slept on a little bit in the draft. I think we kind of talked to about him. I got him in friends and family in the third round, which I thought was good value. But I don't think we loved him overall as a podcast. I think he's going to have a good game. I think he's going to have a good first half of the season. We don't really know what's going on with Kareem Hunt. What's his play time going to look like? He requested a trade out of there. Is that going to hurt his play time? Are they going to try to showcase him to get him out of there? I think Chubb's going to be the guy like we haven't seen him yet. I think Kareem Hunt's not going to get as much play time. They're playing the Panthers. Think there's a grudge game. I think a lot of those guys are going to be really, really working hard to try to beat Baker. And I think in the first half of the season, without Deshaun Watson, that you're going to look to them. Even with Baker, they've always went to the ground. But I think with Jacoby Brissett in at quarterback, is that who's their quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're going to want to hit the ground hard, and I think Nick Chubb's going to be the focal point of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Moving on from that, but also flowing from that, Kareem Hunt was one of the guys that I had on my week starts. I don't think he's going to have a good game. Panthers are very solid against the run, and their backs are very good at containing. It's just how they've been. They've been good in the second level. So I think with that in mind, typically when a team is good on the run, they're not just going to be doing the back and forth of the running backs. I think they're going to lean much harder on Chubb, and I don't think Kareem Hunt has a good game. I also a guy that I would choose for my week start though, Dixie. We're looking at you, man. We're looking at you. Cam Akers. Don't think he's going to have a good game against Buffalo. Buffalo's D very strong. Um, I think that they're going to go into a Cam Akers start. He's going to fizzle fast. They're going to go to Darrell Henderson. He's going to fizzle. They're going to go back to Cam. And I just think it's going to be a back and forth as they struggle to solidify some sort of run game against Buffalo. It's the opening game of the season. No team wants to come out and look bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to, showcase what they have in their quote unquote 1A, 1B running backs, and I just think that they're both going to suffer.
Yeah, I feel like my opinion on that was clear earlier, so I would agree with that. My fizzle, we're gonna go with Zeke. Week 1 playing Tampa Bay Bucks, always been a pretty solid defensive unit there. I just Zeke has fallen off the radar a little bit. I just don't think he has a great game. I think Tony Pollard probably could have an outperforming game total yardage wise than Zeke this game. They've obviously lost Amari Cooper, so they got to replace some of those targets with someone. Obviously, CD Lamb is talked about, but I think they want to use Tony even more so in the passing game. So I'm fading Zeke, and I'm higher on Tony overall. Obviously, Zeke can get some touchdowns, but I think it's going to be a tough game for them. And kind of just going to a little draft recap with the Friends and Family Sun Beers League. Colby Dixie drafted Zeke, and then in the 11th round, picked the first kicker off the board, Justin Tucker, who was obviously a great kicker, but Tony Pollard was still on the board. I think with someone like Zeke, you need to always try to make it a point to especially have Tony Pollard with that offense.
Yeah, I mean, if Zeke goes down, Pollard's a monster, an absolute monster. If Zeke misses any time, Tony Pollard's a easy plug and play #1 running back.
Yeah, also jumping in, I think a lot of value was gained in that round, the 11th and the 12th, as far as running backs and their backups.
Yep.
We saw Kenneth Walker, which Dennis mentioned earlier, who's injured, but everyone's pretty high on him coming out. I got Brian Robinson, who obviously is sitting for the first couple weeks of the season after being shot. But Tony Pollard, like you said, in that round, Naheem Hines behind a monster in Jonathan Taylor, and Madison behind a monster in Dalvin Cook. So you got some value there that was taken off the board, with a lot of people kind of thinking the same thing. I do agree with your Tony Pollard take, especially in week 1, and I am someone who's high on him. My fizzle is kind of going the same route. I think the same route that all three of us took, which is solid running backs facing really good defenses. And with that, mine is David Montgomery against the 49ers. They have a very powerful defensive line and linebacking crew, which is adds to the difficulty of running the ball. I also think that I'm interested to see what Chicago's offense is going to do this year. They're playing a good defense. I think the 49ers offense is gonna have a good game, and with that, you kind of start to see that abandonment of the run. So I think David Montgomery. I also think there's some guys in the depth chart behind him that Chicago likes. There was a huge coaching change there, so David Montgomery might not even be their guy anymore. So it's kind of who knows what's going on with him, and it's a tough matchup.
Yeah, so moving on from that, we'll go into some receivers. Starting off with the guy that I pick, again, keeping to the not picking the most obvious guys on the board. I'm going to go with Christian Kirk. I really think that the Jaguars are going to look different this year than they did last year. I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to come out this year. He's a sophomore quarterback. I think he's really going to improve on what he did last year. He's going to settle into that role. And I think Christian Kirk against the Washington Redskins. Oh, sorry. I'm getting waved at by my editor. The Washington Commanders. Sorry, we'll have to edit that out. I don't think that they're going to be anything this year on defense. They really never have had any sort of pass rush. I think there's going to be a lot of rollouts and dumps to Kirk. So if I was a betting man this week, I would be playing Christian Kirk if I had him in that wide receiver 3 flex spot. I think he's going to get you, that minimum 9-10 points, which is what you look for in that range. And I really think he's gonna win a lot of people week after week, playing him in that position a little bit lower in your depth chart, but getting a solid guy each week. I think he's gonna demand targets all the time, and I think Trevor Lawrence is gonna lean onto him.
Yeah, I'll jump right in and say that's exactly who I had down. Christian Kirk was my flash for this week at wide receiver. I'm pretty high on him overall. He's somebody I was targeting in the kind of mid to later rounds of the draft. Unfortunately, I didn't get him on any of my teams, but I think he's gonna have a big year. I do, I mentioned Trevor Lawrence as my flash behind Russell Wilson for quarterback, and I think I agree with everything you said. I think they paid big money to get him in. They like him. I think his style fits really well with what we saw with Trevor Lawrence's success in college, and I think with the coaching and everything settling down, I think Trevor Lawrence is gonna have a big year, and with that, I think Christian Kirk is as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly along the same lines as what I think Christian Kirk will be. I like week one, Amon Ra, St. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think everyone's gonna, if your eyes aren't open to him, they will be very early on in the season. He ended last year with on a high note. I think he had last four games, a minimum with 10 points. I think his connection with Goff has strengthened over the year, and so I like him, and I think he's gonna have a good game to start us off.
Yeah, so I guess if you drafted both of those players like I did in the Sunbeers League, I guess you're playing them both.
I mean, yeah, it's not the worst idea.
Do I have them in starting spots? I don't think I do. Let's go over to my team and see. Oh, I do
You
have
should
both of them. I have both of them in there.
yeah.
So looks like I
Yeah,
go right off my predictions.
I got St. Brown starting in my flex for Toker's Lounge. So he's someone I was targeting as well with Kirk, and I did get him, I think, in two of my 3 leagues.
Um, Going on from that, if I had to pick a player that I don't think is going to do good from the wide receivers, I'm going to go with Chris Godwin this week. I don't think I would be starting him in many leagues unless I absolutely have to. I actually think I have him in that same league, and I don't think I'm playing him. He's coming off of an injury. Actually, I do have him in the starting lineup. I'll probably be changing that up. Um, but I think you steer away from him at least for the first week. I think he's going to have a good season. I think he's going to benefit from the Julio Jones, and he obviously benefits off of the Mike Evans. But week one, I would probably be waiting to see how that ACL feels. He's a quick slot receiver kind of guy. Um, they rely on their ACLs for those quick cuts. I haven't really seen much from him in the preseason, so I don't know how it is. And I also know that the Bucks love him, so I wouldn't be surprised if early on they're trying to limit his snaps to try to ease him into his role again. Um, they have so many weapons in their quarterback, running back, and receiver core. I wouldn't be surprised if they just took it easy to start the year off, let him get 100% healthy, and then finish the year strong. Try to get Tom Brady his 25th, 26th Super Bowl ring using him. So I would probably be shading away from Chris Godwin, at least for week one. Kirby?
Yeah, I'm gonna go DK Metcalf. It's hard to almost think we live in a day now where a monster on the field and in the physical sense, like DK Metcalf, is not high up. But we talked about it last week. I just do not trust their offense. I don't like who's throwing them the ball. Maybe he will be the only focal point really on their offense, but I just don't even trust that they're going to be getting first downs to even have the potential for targets to even be there. So maybe that'll change as the season goes on, but I am not high on him. I think he could have a chance to lay a major dud.
Well, 2 in a row. My lined up exactly with yours, Kirby. DK Metcalf was my fizzle as well. I think it's going to be a trend all year, but I just figured get out of the way this week. Well, I do think that they're going to go down early. I think they're going to get the doors blown off by the newly founded and newly revamped um, Denver Broncos. I think Russell Wilson's gonna have something to prove. Geno Smith is your quarterback. I don't think that's ever gonna make your wide receiver trend. I think DK Metcalf is gonna require a little bit more attention, or does, because of his physical presence from the defense. And I think that's going to allow Tyler Lockett to continue to be kind of the guy there. Knows the offense very well. Usually the routes that he's running are going to be more accessible for a quarterback who might not be as advanced, or is familiar with the offense. And kind of, I think, as we all kind of view him, more of a backup quarterback in Geno Smith. So I think DK Metcalf is definitely going to be a fizzle, and be surprised to see him have a big game.
Yeah, I'm low on DK this entire season. I just don't. I'm pretty low on a lot of Seahawks players. So until they prove me wrong, I'm probably going to do that. Unless you guys have anything else, I think we skip over the defenses just because we're reaching that 50-minute mark. I know we wanted to keep this towards an hour, so I think we could just jump into our second segment and try to keep this thing under the hour and a half that our first one went. If you guys agree.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna get into our second segment. We had it for week one, but we decided to save it. It made more sense to do it for this week. So it's the Were You Drunk segment. We're going to talk about some players that were drafted, where they were drafted, did it go against the ADP, and basically just beg the question, were you drunk when you drafted them? I mean, I don't really think any of us hit the booze too heavy. I'm sure Kirby could probably have still lit a match off his breath from the hospital, but I don't think anybody had hit the beers too early yet. But we'll get right into it. I think a first guy we're looking at right now is Nick Chubb. Titus took him second round late in the second round, and in our other league, he didn't go to the third round. I think that's more where I would probably take him. So, Titus, were you drunk when you took Nick Chubb? I mean, when I look at the guys that were taken after him, I see Fournette, Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams. I probably would, and even not even running backs, I probably would have rather had Lamb or Mike Evans over Nick Chubb. I've said it before. I don't want anything to do with Cleveland. I think the only guy that's going to get anything is Nick Chubb, but I would have much rather had Leonard Fournette or Aaron Jones. So if I was going to have to say something early on, I'm going to say Titus. Yes, you were drunk when you took Nick Chubb where you took him. Nick Kirby.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I drafted Nick Chubb in the Friends and Family League. Like you said, I got him in the third round. I got him with the 24th overall pick. And I like him there. I think his value. I do think his value kind of sits at around a Leonard Fournette and James Conner, and then Aaron Jones. Kind of. I know we touched on Aaron Jones, kind of being nervous on him with other people. AJ Dillon in the backfield stealing touches, talking about 1 and 1A. I think Nick Chubb kind of falls into that a little bit with the Hunt. But as we talked about earlier, I think Hunt. I don't think he's going to play as big of a role. I think Nick Chubb. I just like Nick Chubb because like I said before, I think that they're going to rely heavily on him. He's proven that in an offense where they rely heavily on the run, he can do it. They have a good offensive line and their team is built to run. So I think he's going to do it. I don't love him where Titus took him, especially with Derrick Henry already. But when you look at his his running backs, it's hard not to kind of like the floor he has with them. They're both volume guys in Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. So I get what he was doing, but I do personally really like CeeDee Lamb over him. While he already kind of established a Derrick Henry type role. So I do think he was hitting the sauce, and he did stay up pretty late. So you need fuel to do that. So maybe he was just throwing him back a little quicker than we thought.
Kirby.
Yeah, I would agree. I would probably go Aaron Jones over Nick Chubb just because I've always notoriously been pretty high on Aaron Jones, and I think even with AJ Dillon, they're gonna have to use both of them a lot. And it's still Aaron Rodgers versus Jacoby Brissett. So I agree with that. But for my segment, Were You Drunk? It piggybacking off what Dennis said. I don't think it was a question if I was. I think I definitely still was from the previous night. I don't think the word sober hit my vocabulary until Monday morning, but
Tuesday.
either that or it's just lack of blood loss. Maybe it was were you blood deficient, like I keep saying. But I think mine's very clear, and it's actually calling myself out. I think in the Toker's Lounge in the ninth round. It was more of a mental pick. I figured without even looking at the board that I in the ninth round or so, Tom Brady was going to be my target. And so I told the commish just to click the button. And then as it went on, I saw that Jalen Hurts was still in the 11th. Obviously, I couldn't pass that up. But I mean, with the Tom Brady pick, I would have much rathered, Christian Kirk. I dropped the ball on that. It was some guy that I think we all were high on that I was targeting mentally, but somehow just chose Tom Brady over that when Kirk was still on the board. I'm going to call myself, yeah, that was a drunk move there.
I agree. I The funniest part about that was not too long after you said, "Why didn't I take Jalen Hurts?" I really thought somebody was going to pick him up, and nobody did. I mean, Sween picked up Kyler Murray, who I would much rather have Jalen Hurts over Kyler Murray. That's just me. I think Jalen Hurts is going to finish as the top 5 quarterback. He's just such a threat on the run. So the fact that you were even able to get him on the back turn just blew my mind. It makes me wonder, uh, Sween, were you drunk letting him pick him up still? I mean, not that Kyler Murray's bad, but you kind of strike me as a guy who would hear Kirby's disappointment and not getting Hurts and instantly swoop in like Tarzan and steal Hurts from him. One, because I think he's better than Kyler Murray, and two, just to rub it in Kirby's face all year. So yeah, I definitely think you were drunk when you took Tom Brady. Not that Tom Brady, I mean, I think he finished higher last year than Jalen Hurts. Yeah, he's QB3 and Hurts is QB9 overall. So I don't think it was a bad pick. Um, I think Jalen Hurts is more fun to watch for fantasy, personally. I like seeing guys run the ball in, but I'd have to agree. I think he
Yeah, I
was
mean,
probably drunk.
Kyler Murray,
especially. Sorry, I was just kind of. If you want to keep talking about Sween, Colin Murray, you can go ahead.
I think Kyler Murray does run the ball. I think he's fun to watch. I think they have a high octane offense and there's a lot of weapons. And I think his value in the 10th round is pretty solid. Uh, the injuries of Jalen Hurts is what scares me. Obviously the runs, and I just don't think they're saying he's more accurate, but I don't think that's where he's going to shine. So you're kind of relying on that and almost hoping for it. And with that, we've seen time and time again the injuries come. So
But you were saying that I was very vocal about it, which I was, and that Brandon didn't pick him up. But I'm almost more questioning Dixie not picking it up on the back turn. He picked a tight end, and then he basically picked Dawson Knox, which is not a bad tight end to have. But when you look at all the tight ends that were still on the board, he could have easily got him Jalen Hurts then, and then any other tight end or even Knox at that point. I liked how he got Hines, and I could see what maybe his logic was needing a tight end, but he also didn't have a quarterback at that point. And he has Stafford, which could be good, but he could have had Hurts. He
Yeah,
passed over.
and
I
he
do
took Tyler
agree.
Lockett right after.
And speaking of a Dixie, I do want to, are you drunk here? Uh, the misses over there in the Dixie combo, we did touch on a little bit, but when CD Lamb followed up with her 3rd round pick on coming back to her, so the second pick in the 3rd round, 3-2, the Ezekiel Elliott pick. After that, we saw someone who all three of us are high on in Pittman. We got Nick Chubb, Fournette, Connors, Montgomery, Mike Evans, Josh Jacobs. I like all those. Definitely Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette I like more than Ezekiel Elliott. So while we know Colby wasn't actually drunk, I think she might have been a little love drunk on the living in the past on the name of Ezekiel Elliott there.
And to touch on that, she's going to be starting 3 Dallas players.
I
She
was
also
just
has
gonna say
Dalton
that.
Schultz. I don't think putting your eggs into the basket of Dallas is smart this year. Like I've said, they took a big hit to their D line, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were leaning a little more on Dalton Schultz to be that kind of inside blocker. Um, and you know, she could have taken uh, Goddard, Hawkinson, Knox, who I might have taken after that, just based on the fact that back to back I took Dallas players. Not that I don't think they're going to be good. I think CeeDee Lamb and Elliott could both be great. But yeah, I think it might have been a drunk move picking 2 Dallas players. It might have been a lack of weed that could have been clouding her judgment instead of being drunk. So, were you not high when you chose those two back to back, Kirby?
Yes. I don't really know how to. I guess I don't really know how to answer that one.
I was looking more for your input, not to ask the question.
uh, yes, I don't know. No, yes, you were not high. Maybe being high would have helped. I'm just kind of still looking at and getting a feel for the three Dallas starting lineup choice, which could work out.
Um, I guess moving on to another player, we could argue the Devonte Adams more on the aspect of were you drunk taking him as early as you did, or I'll take it another way. Liv, were you drunk going to another pregnant lady? Were you drunk when you passed up on having could have potentially had Devonte Adams, Jamar Chase, and going Diggs and Chase? Um, Not that I don't like Diggs. I probably would have taken Devonte. I don't think that him falling to the fourth round, the fourth pick of the second round, should have probably happened. I think we're all pretty high on him this year. But um, I guess we can go to Brandon. Were you drunk when you took him second with your second pick with Joe Mixon? And I don't think you were. I think Devonte Adams is going to have a good year. I think he should go early. I don't think you should be afraid of having Derek Carr. He can look into the sun directly with all the eye black that he wears under his eyes. So that's never a factor, whether he's under a dome or whether he's in that beating light at that 1 o'clock game. Um, I think he's going to have a good year. I don't think you were drunk. I think people should have been trying to pick him up early. Uh, I know I got him in one of my other leagues, and I took him early in a 12-man league, and I think he's going to have a solid year. So, Kirby, let's go to you for this. Devontae Adams, is that a drunk pick?
No, I don't think so at all. But I do think the drunk pick is the James Conner pick. It once again depends on your strategy, and I am high on all those fourth round receivers over what I think James Conner can do. So I think
It's
if you had
interesting.
Mixon, Adams, any of those fourth rounders, Sutton, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, and then Kittle, even with the Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, and then even with the Damian Harris and Cordell Patterson, like I think I would rather that instead of James Conner being a part of that group.
Sween and Slim both took Adams and then Connor with their second and third pick. If you look at it, is there some sort of chemistry they think that they have together, or because they both took him, they both went Adams and then Connor.
That is true.
Nick, anything on that?
Yeah, that is interesting. I just think I don't think the pick from Brandon. I think Brandon was the first person to crack a beer. But I do not think that influenced his decision making when taking Devonte Adams. I think the segment more is what you need to be worried about. Is Las Vegas going to make Devonte Adams drunk? We're talking about a city that never sleeps. We're talking about a city that sins. We are talking about a city that you might be on a 3-day bender come game day on Sunday, Friday, Saturday. You waking up, what's it going to be like? So is Devonte Adams going to be drunk in Las Vegas? Going from a a very rural and boring Green Bay Packers play location to some say is one of the most electric places in the world to kind of be out and doing it. So that's the real question for me here is that going to affect Devontae Adams' play?
Just to give you some more information for that, the Raiders probably have more, but they already have had two big name DWs with Josh Jacobs getting in an accident, cutting his head like me. Maybe I should have drafted him. And then obviously the probably currently in jail Henry Ruggs III.
Oh, definitely in jail.
So there's not a good track record for Vegas athletes. And yes, I would agree with Nick. Devontae Adams probably will be drunk, and he could be on a later segment.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen teams that go into Las Vegas not play well, and they've definitely attributed it to the Vegas factor. So I think that's an excellent take on it. I didn't even think of that. watch out when you're in Las Vegas. Even if you're a team that's going in to play Las Vegas at home, you might want to think about staying away from some of those players.
Yep, stay outside the city, helicopter your guys in, do it that way. I just do want to say a little breaking news on the episode. It was talked about missing week one. Kind of goes back to our like of Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk week one, but massive hit to the Commanders. Trace Young just reported has re-aggravated his ACL injury. By Von Miller at camp. There seems to be some bad blood there, and it's looking like he might miss some, not just week one, but some significant time here.
Yeah, thanks for that injury update. We're always trying to get news in here as quickly as we can. We'll do one more, and then we'll probably move on. We're kind of still running late. Let's go to Michael Thomas. I think we're all thinking the same thing. Are you drunk taking Michael Thomas? I mean, we know Sween has a thing for Thomas. I don't know what it is, but it seems like he always lands on his team. Let's see who has him in the other league.
Both.
He does.
Brandon,
He has.
Brandon
Oh
has
my
them both.
God. I'm going to start it off by saying, yeah, I think you're drunk thinking that Thomas is going to be the guy he used to be. I think he could be good. It's one of those guys where I think he has a higher chance of not being the guy you're looking for. He's an old player. He doesn't have Drew Brees. Did I say he was old? Because he's old. He's 29 years old. Sometimes it does a disservice to see the name Michael Thomas. I mean, you're looking in that round and you're like, who do I go with? Robinson, Brown, Cooper, Juju Smith-Schuster. So I understand it, a little nervous, but I would have definitely taken Amon-Ra St. Brown, the god of Ra. I definitely think that he's going to have a good year. I mean, he finished the season super, super good. So I probably would have taken him. Let's see who he missed up on in the other league. It looks like he missed out on Brandon Cooks. Yeah, I would have taken him. I would have taken Thielen over him. Um, I might have even taken my boy Uke. Might have taken Brandon Ayuk over him.
Ahmad Ra in that league as well.
Yeah.
He also
So
But
also
it
missed
kind of
Allen Robinson. If he was feeling the nostalgia and wanted to go someone who might possibly pan out, he could have got DeAndre Hopkins.
yeah.
So there was a lot of them. I think Brandon had Michael Thomas the year that he set the receiving record. I think it might have led to his name on the trophy, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's where the feels. It hits him deep down in the plums when he sees that name.
I mean, you said it. You said it for Colby being love drunk, and they must be both got hit by the same arrow by Cupid when it comes to Ezekiel for Colby and Michael Thomas for Brandon. It's someone that he's never not going to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason I don't take Keenan Allen, the opposite reason. But like once you get burned from a guy, you don't want it to happen again. It might just be too hard for him to see someone else win with that guy on there, and he just can't live with the fact that he saw him, he passed on him, and someone else with him won. Even if that someone had Michael Thomas on the bench, I think it might hurt his ego. So yeah, I think we're all in consensus. Drunk. Let's move on. We'll go to the.
Well, I will
Oh,
say
oh,
Brandon does get. I will say Brandon does definitely get like that because in our other draft, he got mad at me for taking he got pissed off because I took Cordell Patterson. Like he gets very attached to some guys. You see, he has Cordell Patterson in Sunbeers. He has him in Toker's Lounge too.
He does.
Putting all his eggs into the same team. He just drafted the same team. It'll be interesting.
The guy drafts in the time machine. Unfortunately, his time machine only goes backwards. So we'll see how that works out for him.
Yeah, he also has a guy on his team named Gay, so I don't know if he's gay for these players, but I'm getting another note from my editor. Probably edit that one out as well. Sorry, we're trying to keep this PG. Should we move on to the Gasm segment? Anyone?
Sure.
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
we're going to go to the Gasm segment. The three Gasms, you know it. You listen to the podcast. You were at the wedding. We're just going to look at some of the draft. We're going to pick three players right by each other. name them off, and then kind of ask who are the two guys you think are going to be the real gasms, and who are the guys you think are going to be the fake gasm, and that can be either for the whole year play or just with who you took next to them. Um, so, Kirby, do you have any guys, a three-pick combo that you want to discuss with the three of us on fake, real, and real?
Yeah, we're gonna do the Sunbeers round 2. Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones.
All right, go on. Give us the fake gasm.
Ah, I think I have to just go Saquon even though.
Cut the part. Cut the part.
I'm nervous that it's gonna bite me and everyone's gonna say Javonte, but I have to go Saquon. We talked about it last week. It just when you work a horse too much, sometimes you gotta send him to the glue factory. So it doesn't seem. I'm nervous he's not gonna be able to produce.
Nick?
Interesting. Javonte Williams plays for the Broncos. Speaking of glue factory, just saying. I actually I don't disagree. I don't think I can fight hard with that, but I think overall the Aaron Jones is the fake. I don't like drafting someone in the second round that you're hearing they're going to be their backfield's going to be they're really 1A and 1B. You're splitting time at a running back position in a league where the running backs, their load share is starting to dwindle because it's become more of a passing league. And Aaron Jones having and rumors coming out that they view their backfield as a 1 and 1A with AJ Dillon is nervous to me. So I think he's the fake gasm. And I think Saquon's going to come back. And I think the biggest thing with that there is the value. We're talking about a guy who got drafted, top 4, top 5 pick last year. So I think he's posed to have a big season.
And just to say that, I do hope you're right. I didn't want to say it because I'm superstitious. I didn't want to jinx it, but I hope you are right because I got AJ Dillon in both leagues. XBC Eagle, Fly Eagles High. I'll sing the fight song if you want, but I've heard conflicting reports that I may not know all the words, but yeah, I'm high on AJ Dillon, so I hope Aaron Jones is the fake because I have him, like I said, all 3 leagues I'm in, and I'm really hoping that he shines as not just a 1B but a 1A.1.
I'm going to keep things spicy, and I'm actually going to go Javonte Williams. I think I'm high on Saquon Barkley. I know we've talked about it, and some people aren't, but he claims that he's 100% back to healthy. We've seen him do nasty things for fantasy on a bad team. I think he's going to have a good year, and I think Aaron Jones is also going to have a good year. Not so when I make this pick, I'm not saying I don't think Javonte Williams is going to be good, but I just think higher of the other two players. I think Green Bay is going to be forced to lean on Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I I lean away from a running back 1A 1B combo, but I think they have no choice but to try to have them both on the field at the same time, um, and use them any way they can. I don't think they have much talent anywhere else. I know Lazard is probably going to be fed targets, but I think Jones is going to have a good year on that team solely based on the fact that they have no one else. So I'm going with Javonte Williams just based on the fact that I'm higher on the other two guys. I don't think Melvin Gordon's going to be much of an issue. I mean, he's been quoted himself saying that he thinks the team is going to lean more on Javonte Williams. So he just kind of sounds like a slim, if you will, negative about himself. So I don't have much faith in Melvin Gordon coming in to take his role away, but I have more faith in the other two guys just simply having a better season than Javonte Williams. Nick,
Yeah, Javonte Williams definitely a guy. I had him last year. I was high on him last year. I think he's a great physical talent and a great running back. I just don't love him that high with him splitting backfields. I think I feel that way with both guys, which is my Saquon feeling more comfortable with that. But yeah, as far as my gasm, I'm sticking with the my three gasms, I'm sticking with the same three players around later. I think it's going to be a compelling argument, but you're looking at Cortland Sutton, DJ Moore, and Mike Williams.
Okay, give us your fake gasm.
My fake gasm is going to be Mike Williams. I actually am pretty high on all three of these guys, but as far as the three of them, if you had to pick one, I think the fake one's gonna be Mike Williams. I had him last year. I like him. I think Herbert, he's the more comfortable he gets, the more he's gonna kind of distribute the ball. I felt like Mike Williams last year was kind of started out really, really fast and kind of slowed down. But Cortland Sutton, I think I'm really high on him with Russell Wilson as his quarterback. I like him and Judy a lot. And DJ Moore, I think a huge upgrade at quarterback, another guy with a huge upgrade at quarterback. So it's just more of the upside of these two guys, knowing that I think they have big quarterback upgrades and still had solid years last year. Where Mike Williams, you got Eckler stealing passes out of the backfield. You got, you got to be Keenan Allen over there as well, who's kind of the go-to, like when things get tough, they like getting the ball to him. He's always open. He's kind of Ben Herbert's go-to guy when things get tight. So I think for that reason, that's my fake gasm.
Kirby?
Yeah, it's tough for me regarding this one.
Because you have both of those guys?
Well, no, not in that sense. I am between Sutton and Williams. I think Nick has a compelling argument. I guess the way I look at it is, assuming Mike Williams has the same year, will Sutton be better than that with Russell Wilson? I don't know if that fully makes sense, but assuming, I know there's a lot of assumptions here, that Mike Williams does not regress, will Sutton be as good with Russell Wilson? And it could be. So maybe Mike Williams, and then regardless of the regression, would be the fake gasm. I think it's a tough one to me. I'm high on all three of them, but I think Nick made a good point. There's probably be some sort of regression with Mike Williams as Herbert gets more comfortable. So I think there'll be some regression for Mike Williams, stock up for Sutton. So I'm going to go Williams, fake gasm. And for some reason about Williams too, the major thing that I always worry about, I feel like he does have some injury history, so there's always a chance he may miss a few games. So I'm going to, with all those things considered, go Mike Williams as well.
I'm going to have to pick someone different just to argue the point. I don't want to have us all pick the same guys and just beat the dead horse. No pun intended for Denver, but I'm taking DJ Moore as my fake gasm. Now, much as Kirby said, and Nick, high on all three of these guys. If you have either of these guys, I think they're going to be solid as can be. But if I had to pick one guy that I think could be the fake gasm, it's going to be DJ Moore. We saw him last year. He didn't have the greatest year. Obviously, that had to do with his quarterback, but a lot of single digits. I've been high on him before. I was high on him last year, and he didn't do anything. So maybe it's a little bit of that kidneying me thing coming to me. But Mike Williams, man, even with the injury last year where he missed at least a game and he had a couple single digit games, he still finished as wide receiver number 9. I mean, I think in the first 5 weeks, he was something like wide receiver 4. 26 points, 29 points, 14, 15. And he finished the season strong even after coming back from the injury. I'm super high on him. And I think the fact that Keenan Allen is just getting older is only going to help him supplant himself as the true number one. Herbert obviously favored him a lot last year over Keenan Allen. And Cortland Sutton, I think he's going to have a monster year. I think Russell Wilson's going to feed him. I think he's been waiting to get this kind of stud quarterback under his arsenal. So I really think Cortland Sutton is going to have a monster year, both him and Judy. We're Team Orange if you listen to the podcast. So I'm going to go with DJ Moore based on the fact that I just think Sutton and Williams are both going to have better years than him. I don't know how Baker's going to be he could still be thinking he's the Heisman winner that he never was able to reproduce in the big leagues. So I'm going to go with Moore as the fake gasm. Um, Moving on from that, I guess I'll pick mine. I'm going to go a
I
little
just
bit. Oh, go ahead. We have breaking
uh,
news.
I was just finishing up crunching some numbers as you were finishing the app. I had Mike Williams. It was very frustrating. I actually think after the first 3 weeks he was wide receiver one. And I think he had a bad week and then another great week. I think after the first 5 weeks he was wide receiver one or two, but shortly after that, from weeks 6 to weeks 15, he missed 16 with an injury. He had in 7 he had a bye, but it was a total of 9 of over a course of 9 weeks. He averaged 6.14 points a game. Only 2 games in the double digits. One of them was 50, and the other one was 11. 1.9, 3.3, 3.9. So it's just a guy that you feel like you need to start because of his big play potential, but he's just frustrating. He's a frustrating guy to own last year for me. Um, so I do agree with some of your points. He did still finish high, but he's kind of a boomer bust, um, and it can be frustrating to own. Um, Especially looking at it, he was the first guy taken off the board for Brandon at the receiver slot. So in our friends and family.
All right, there you have it. So I'm going to pick 3 names in the 7th round of Sunbias that went back to back to back. I think it's going to be a little more tricky for some of us. So I'm going to pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Elijah Mitchell, and Antonio Gibson. Um,
It's a good one.
3 guys that I think it's easy to tell who one of the real gasms is. I think it's going to be a no question. Elijah Mitchell is the one of the real gasms. I think the question is who is going to be the fake gasm between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Antonio Gibson. Um, I think Antonio Gibson has a very good chance of coming out in the beginning of the year and having a very solid first couple of games without Brian Robinson. Obviously, he's shot. Um, but um, will that continue throughout the year? Um, I think if I had to pick the fake gasm, though, I am going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I just don't think he's played up to the potential that we wanted him to. This is a guy that was going in the first round. Now he's going towards the end of the 7th. I think Gibson has a chance to gain that starting role back, and I think he can get you more fantasy points, even if he only plays the first 6 or 8 games. I think he's going to be a bigger fantasy impact than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think Mitchell's going to be a pretty good running back on that team. I think he's going to be used a lot, so I don't even think he's worth talking about here. But I'm going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the fake gasm. Kirby?
Yeah, I think Elijah Mitchell has maybe the highest potential to do well. I think his injury history is very concerning to me. But of the 3 of them, I'm going with Gibson as the fake. I mean, the dude had the starting role last year, lost the starting role, got moved to kickoff. I think he has fumble issues. I mean, maybe he ordered the hit on Robinson so he could try to get one last saving grace, one last attempt
I
to
thought
prove
that.
himself. So I mean, maybe that's what you need out of a guy, that he's going to put the effort and dedication in to get his shot again. But still, with it, I don't really trust the Commanders team as a whole. I don't like Carson Wentz. I don't think Gibson is going to have really any chance, or have any ability to shine. I think he's had this chance, and he needs to be in the doghouse for sure. So I'm going with Gibson as the fake.
Nick?
Um, I I I agree with what you said. I think Mitchell's the obvious choice, is definitely one of the non-fakes. But I'm actually going to give it to him. Um, I think he has the highest ceiling of all these guys. I don't even think it's really close. But I don't like his ability to um stay healthy. One and two. I know you're someone who's really high, Dennis. I know you're someone who's really high on Trey Lance. Throwing a lot of numbers. They're projecting him for 800 yards rushing. They're saying there's a good chance he go over 1,000. Well, those rushing yards come from somewhere. I think he's gonna be a quarterback that's gonna have designed runs, and that takes the ball out of a running back's hand. I think Jeff Wilson behind Elijah Mitchell has proven that he can be the guy, and I think he will be, whether healthy or not, I think he's going to be getting his fair share of touches in that backfield also. So I'm looking at it as a three person committee kind of between their quarterback and two running backs. Scratch that. Throw in both Debo
Yeah, that's what I was
Samuel
gonna say.
and Brandon Ayuk, who both take the ball out of the backfield. Debo Samuel lining up in the backfield. I know they were talking about kind of getting away from it a little bit, but Brandon Ayuk, he does the sweeps. So um, and then I just as I'm thinking down their roster, they have one of the best fullbacks in the league. I know he's more of a blocking guy, but they are one of the teams who still it's rare, but they are one of the teams that do some goal line and short line distance. Quick handoffs to their running back and Kyle Juszczyk. But so I just think there's only one ball. There's a lot of in the backfield there. I don't love the other guys. I was huge on Antonio Gibson. I know Kirby was as well. We both had him in different leagues last year. Kind of a guy who there was a lot of hype on him. And I think that if it wasn't for Brian Robinson getting shot and whatnot, there wouldn't be much fantasy value for him really at all from that is. But I do think he's a good talent. He's a great build for the running back position in the NFL. And I think that if he gets out to the right start, it's going to be hard for Brian Robinson to come back and take his spot. And I think he could do that. And Edwards-Helaire, just the offense. It's hard not to like the offense. He's going to get his chances. He's going to get his touches. Mahomes definitely takes away some of that, but it's just the offense he's in. You just have to love the chances of him getting touches. The team still need to run the ball. They need to keep people in check, and he's looking like he's the guy there. So just for sake of argument and sake of kind of change it up, I think Elijah Mitchell has a real high chance of being the fake Gasm.
The only counterpoint I would make to that, which is not really the most conventional way of thinking, but I could see the rushing yardage by Trey Lance actually helping Mitchell than hurting. I think when he has the rock in his hands a lot, that's when you see a lot of his injuries. And I think, just time on the field could go up even with Lance running the ball. So if he's on the field, he has a potential to score points. It's better than not being on the field. So in a kind of a reverse way, it actually may help him.
Yeah, I think those are all good points made by all of you guys. I mean, Mitchell did miss 6 games last year, and on the same accord, Clyde Edwards-Helaire also missed a slew of games. So yeah, I think it was a tough one. I think it was nice to have 3 different opinions on 3 different fake orgasms. So none of us have any of those guys. So let's just hope they're all fakes.
Amen to that.
We're gonna end this segment off with our 4th segment. It's gonna be the bad boys. It's more like the bad boy. We're hitting that hour 30 mark again. We told you we wouldn't. We did. So we'll work on that. But we're gonna go into the bad boy segment and cap this one off with a guy that just commands the first round ballot bad boy. Guy you've heard us talk about a lot. It's Brian Robinson. You don't get much more bad boy than being shot twice before the season even starts. And the bad boy aspect is the fact that they think he's going to be coming back week 7 or 8 after being shot with a gun twice in broad daylight. I don't think anyone could even come close to being more of a bad boy in a good way than that. You guys want to say anything on Brian Robinson's bad boy attitude?
Yeah, well, sorry, Nick. Just to
ahead.
give the listeners some background, what the bad boy segment is kind of just talking about a player that is quote unquote a bad boy that does something wrong on the fields, off the fields. But in this case, we're giving the inaugural bad boy to a badass boy, which is Brian Robinson. And I couldn't agree with what Dennis said more. The fact that the guy got shot twice and is still on track to play this year I commend him for that.
Nick, last comments on the bad boy?
No, yeah, I think you guys hit it perfectly. I'll just sum it up by, definitely the apology for going long for those of you who did make it. In our defense, as we said the first week, we were talking drafts, we were talking about previous season, all that stuff. This year, this episode 2 having some stuff that won't be here week to week, the draft party stuff, the draft recap stuff. That stuff being cut out, it's going to save a lot of time. I think it's a lot of good content to go over. It was a great day with everybody, and thank you everyone for making it. But with those being cut out, we should be definitely under an hour and a little bit less winded as we kind of build our repertoire. So thanks for everybody for listening. Thank you everybody for dealing with our long-winded responses, and notable shout out bad boy Ryan Kirby drafting with a busted ass face at the draft.
Yeah, and first time we've ever seen an injury from a fantasy manager. So yeah, definitely bad boy of the fantasy draft.
Yeah, it's not a Toker's Lounge party without Ryan having a little blood, in the mix. And let me tell you, there was a lot of it. So I covered that for the next year.
All right, Toke Pod number 2. We're out of here. We'll see you guys next week. Tokies, we look forward to you guys. Hopefully you have a good week 1, and we'll see you next week on episode 3.
Good luck, guys.